Hello everyone, and welcome to another day on the allotment. The parsnip seeds have germinated, but also we've had a lot of rain and so have the weeds. So I'm going to go down this row and just pick out the weeds so that I can hoe. So I'll just hand weed around here, if you can see where these weeds are, just so that you can see the parsnips. And then all of this along here I know is fine to hoe, and that will just take me a few minutes. But just unpicking the weeds from the parsnip seeds will be the first job, so that we can actually see them, they can get some air, and then they'll start romping on. And it's good to see so many parsnips have come up, so it'll be a good crop for the winter. So I've taken out all the weeds from around the parsnips, and I must say they do look a lot better. So in a bit I shall just get the hoe and get a bucket and clear the piles of weeds that have accumulated along the sides, and then give everything along here and along this side to the right and the left of the parsnips a good hoe to clear up the rest of the small weeds before they get too big. I'm really pleased with those parsnips, and we seem to have a reasonable spread. The next task will be in here, my next horrible job. This is where there's a load of carrots, except you can't really see them because there's a load of weeds. But with the wet weather, the warm weather, just the weeds, the carrots, everything's come up. So unfortunately I'm going to have to take off the nets and get in there, but just trying to avoid the carrot fly coming in with me. In front of the carrots I've got a row of tomatoes, and they all need tying up and armpitting, as I call it. And that's where you get the tomato and you take out this little shoot just here. So you have the main stem, then you have the leaf that comes out, and between the main stem and the leaf, in that little joint, as I call it, the armpit, you take those out. And there's a few, but be careful not to take out the main growing tip. So these all need tying up now, and I shall start feeding these as well because they're flowering. And I'm just hoping that we don't get too much more rain, because that will encourage the blight to come along. But they're looking good, they're looking really nice, they're beginning to flower, so I hope we get some tomatoes this year. I'm in the greenhouse at home, and I'm just pricking out a load of brassicas that I planted some weeks ago, and these are going to follow the potatoes, and they will be for over winter. So I've started to prick them out. I've already done the purple sprouting broccoli, and I've got some Rudolph, which is another purple sprouting broccoli, which I'm hoping will come or be ready slightly differently from the claret that I've got. So I have a bit more of a succession crop, but I don't know that that's going to be true. So I've got cauliflowers, broccoli, some winter cabbages, some Chinese cauliflower, which is new to me, and I've got over here that I'm just potting up now some kalettes. Although I have planted these a couple of times, I never actually got to cropping any and eating any. So although I have grown them before, I haven't actually eaten any. So this will be my first year, I hope, fingers crossed. So I'm going to pot all of these seedlings up now, and some of the seeds haven't germinated, so that's a cauliflower that hasn't germinated, and some of the winter cabbages are a bit poor germination. So I'm going to have a good look and decide that I might just sow a few more bits and pieces for overwinter and the hungry gap. How do you grow your swede? I've tried different ways and different varieties, and it's hit and miss, but I guess the best way so far, or the most successful way, is to leave it slightly later in the year, so sowing them now in early June. One seed to a cell, and sowing them in cells and then planting them out. And I know that some people sow them direct, but you know, swede's one of those things that we're not hugely successful with. So let me know how you sow your swede and how you grow your swede, and I'll be grateful for some tips. I'm planting some fennel and some pak choi, green, and some red pak choi. One of them, this one, the DT Browns, I got in a seed order and is a trial, so I'm going to put some of those in. They don't take long to crop, and I've got a little bit of space, so I'm hoping these will romp away and come up for an early cutting. Earlier in the year, they're absolutely hammered by flea beetles, so I'm hoping I'll either have to cover them if they start being attacked, or I'm hoping that planting them a little bit later I may get away with not being so badly eaten. I'm also sowing some extra cauliflowers, green trevally and sunset, and these are sown slightly later, and they're really nice because one's green and one's yellow, and it just makes a little change on the plate, and they keep their colour when you cook them. So I'm popping some of those in. My Brussels sprouts didn't come up very well. They didn't germinate very well, so I'm putting in some more Crispus and Brody, because they'll still come up fine, and I'm hoping that we'll still get. Last year I put them in really late and they still came up, and we had Brussels for Christmas, so I'm going to give it a go again. I would have had some a lot earlier, but that's how it goes sometimes. And also my tundra, which is like a Savoy cabbage, didn't really germinate. There's maybe one or two, so I'll pop those on, but I'll actually sow a few more. And again, we probably won't get these to a bit later, but that's not so bad, because this year I did the same, like last year I did the same thing, and they were a bit later, but they helped in the hungry gap when there wasn't very much else. And then the last thing I'm going to do is plant some of this cendrous cauliflower, because one of the cauliflowers that I put in as well, the seed, it's germinated a little bit, so I've got a few plants, but not really enough, so I'm going to pop a few more in and see how they go too. So I'll be doing that today for a late crop. The onions have now all gone over, as near as you can see. The green bits have flopped over, which means they're ready to pick. So I'm going to go up this row and pick all of these onions, and they look good so far. It's hard to say until you've lifted them and had a good look, but from here they look lovely. The onions are coming up nicely. No white rot, but we've had an awful lot of rain, so these are going to need a good drying off. These have come up really well. Normally you don't pull them, but these are actually quite on the surface. and they're good, so hopefully these will store reasonably well if I can keep them dry and aired for a good few weeks until they dry off. But they're looking lovely. I'm really pleased. And this is from an autumn sowing from Sets, and this was the Japanese onion, which I can't quite remember what it's called, but I'll put it up underneath when I can remember. But I'm going to finish lifting this row and getting them home. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, happy gardening. Bye.